Okay guys, I think we'll get started then. My name is Becky Parisotto, and was my slide up? Yeah, perfect. Okay. My name is Becky Parisotto, and I am an account manager and business developer with Acro Media. I have some of my Acroites down here in the front row to heckle me. So we are a Drupal and specifically Drupal Commerce house located in Kelowna. We have about almost 60 developers and support staff on our team. And we moved to the world of Drupal around D5, and we've been with it ever since. We went through the Uber cart years, and we're into commerce now. So I've been with Acro for about 6.5 years, and on the Telus account pretty much my entire stay there. So I want to talk to you guys about how Telus Mobility became Drupal users. Okay, so this is going to kind of cover 3 main buckets. Obviously, you can imagine the scope of what Telus Mobility Online might look like, so I'm not going to get too far into the weeds with you. I'm going to try to cover off how Acro and Telus met, because that's pretty much the #1 question we always get is how did this relationship start? And then when a company the size of Telus agrees to make a move over to a system like Drupal, what do you actually do? How do you start that thought process? And then help you guys understand that a project like this can or cannot be profitable. So how do you understand if you're actually going to make money at the end of the day doing a project this large? So, I should follow along my notes here. I just met a woman from Telus. Any other Telus employees in the room right now? Oh, there you are. Any other Telus employees here? Any Telus customers? All right. So typical Telus experience. Frustrating. You're mad because your bill is higher than you think it's going to be. You try to log into their website to pay your bill, and the login won't let you log in. All of these things still happen, and the good news is none of that has to do with Acro Media. So please try to keep in perspective the part of Telus in which we work on. It's a funny and somewhat related aside. As being on part of the Telus team, I have privy to the Telus Slack channel of customer complaints. So if you think you're having a bad day at work and you're a little bit stressed out and you need to have a giggle, go into the Telus customer complaint Slack channel and see what you find. And here's my favorite one that I've come across to date. So, it says, I'm currently trying to Netflix and chill, and it's quite difficult to do so without a working internet connection. I pay my bill, and all I want to do is Netflix and chill, and I have a girl here, and she's getting bored, and if she leaves, I'll forever be alone. How does that make you feel? So we all can understand that kind of common frustration when it comes to dealing with our mobile service provider. So I keep my eye on it. I watch a little bit of weird plastic surgery on YouTube on a stressful day, and then I hit the customer complaints channel, and I feel way better about my life. So, who is Telus? I know we have some US counterparts here as well. So Telus is basically the Canadian version of AT&T, Virgin Mobile. We're second largest mobile provider in the country. They serve 8.6 million subscribers. So you know when you're looking at an agency's website and you see they have like Sony and all of these really impressive brands on their portfolio page. Really, did they do like a $3,000 pay-per-click campaign for them and now they're toting them as this huge client? So I want to contextualize what Telus is to Acro Media. So in order for me to do that, I need to give you the 2-second version of who Telus is. So Telus is the 28th largest company in Canada. They're about an $18 billion a year company. That's home phone, internet, television, and mobile devices. So from there, Telus Mobility is mobile devices and plans sold in the store, on the internet, and by phone. This line right here is where Acro Media and Drupal Commerce come into play. So Telus Mobility Digital is any phone and or plan sold on the web. So anything that happens after that line happens through Acro Media and through Drupal Commerce. And that makes up about $10 million of the revenue every year. So this is the #1 question that we get. It's like, how does a company of 60 people, and more like 20 people at the time, meet a company as large as Telus Mobility and turn them into a client? Well, they Googled it and found us. That's what our ownership tells us the folklore anyway. So 2004, Telus was in the process of building this big, glamorous SaaS solution. I'm not going to name names, but they spent a lot of years on this big SaaS solution. And as they were building that, they were still employing 6 or 7 full-time dudes to manually fulfill these online orders. So it was a web form at the time. So they found Acro through Google search, and they asked, can you guys throw anything up that can take a sale online as a quick 2-month-long stopgap solution? So they said, yep, we can do that. And at the time, we had this product called Storebox. And Storebox was a C++ product that we had built and we sold and we licensed it monthly. It was like, Telus paid $400 a month for it. And we put it up and they were putting orders through it, no problem. It was called shop.telusmobility.com. That's how it started. So this Storebox instance went up, and then they eventually got their big SaaS solution live. And as the SaaS solution went live, they kind of limped this guy along in the background with us for years and years, adding weird little bits and pieces to it. So they'd want to run an internal promotion, and they would call us, and we would do it through this platform. And it turned into this kind of scattered instance of C++ commerce, for lack of a better descriptor. So we went along with this for years and years and years, kind of behind the scenes as a very secondary partner to Telus digital online. 2010 hit, and Telus had this bright idea that they wanted to be first to market with the iPhone 4. And they were going to run something called an iPhone pre-order. And basically, we're all familiar with Steve Jobs coming out on stage, presenting the device, and then we all anxiously wait for the week or two until the device is on sale. In that 1 to 2 week period where everybody was feeling warm and fuzzy about the iPhone, Telus wanted to capture those customers, take their money ahead of time, and then ship the device when it became available to the rest of the public. They were the first company to do this, and so they went to their SaaS provider where all of their phones were listed, and they asked them, and the company was like, dude, no, we can't do that. We can't make these quick changes. We can't configure this product behind the scenes for you. You have to wait for our roadmap to come out. Like, this doesn't work on our system. So somebody in the Telus vortex called Acro and said, hey, you know that little Storebox solution that you have up for us, do you think that you can beef it up and handle iPhone pre-order traffic? So the guy said, oh, okay, I think we can. So the dev team, apparently the very first iPhone pre-order, which was the 4, they only had to spend about 2 weeks customizing it because nobody else was doing it at the time. Rogers wasn't doing it, Bell wasn't doing it. So we didn't really have a competitive marketscape to compare against. And they took the first iPhone pre-order, and it was a huge success. So Telus got to brag that they were first to market. We got to brag about our speed and agility and able to serve our customers' needs. And after that, it just turned into this relationship of deep love as a vendor and a client. The attitude was really around being able to do things quickly and say yes to them and still do them in a secure manner. So after that happened in 2010, they kind of moved all of their commerce stuff over to us. We had no big, massive, 1-year-long planning phase when we started all of this. So this was just being added onto it, added onto it, added onto in C++. And by the time it was all over in 2010, we were at over 700,000 lines of, organized but not elegant code. So now we have 4 massive connected sites. We're transacting for these 8.6 million users. We have 28,000 Telus employees that are all using this portal. We have every retiree is entitled to a specialty part of this portal. We have a friends and family program. We have a lot of activity going on in this antiquated C++. Like, our dudes have to come in the middle of the night to change a price because we don't have a CMS in this thing. So we start to tell them about how awesome Drupal is because we've been working on Drupal for years and years, but they're stuck in this vortex. So as we begin to have the discussions about Drupal in about 2011, explain to them what open source is, you get the security of the community, you get the code of the community, the speed, all of this great stuff. Kudo, the little sister to Telus, our lead Kudo developer is here, said, hey, we'll do it. We don't have to wait for the politics to tell us. We'll just do it. So Kudo actually hopped on board. Actually, we have our former lead too. We got both of them. Kudo guys. So Kudo hopped on board and built out in Drupal in 2013. So finally, after another year of demos and discussion and security and architecture with Telus, they said, okay, yeah, we're ready to move over to Drupal. So 2014, we started the migration for Telus over to Drupal and Drupal Commerce. We started the process of decommissioning everything that was going on in the old C++ Storebox product, and our first customer flow went live in 2015. So fast forward to this past June, every customer flow and all of the code is ported over to Drupal Commerce. We're finally off old Storebox. Our old servers are finally gone, which is a painfully long process and a super exciting day for the Telus pod, or the T-pod as we call them at Acro. So you go through this process of trying to talk this client of this scale into moving over a major section of their business, and they finally agree to it. Now what are you supposed to do? So, we have clients kind of in the $10 million revenue range for their entire business for the year. We're really comfortable applying and architecting on that level, a lot less departments to deal with and people to please. So now we're trying to work with all of these different groups, and we're trying to have that same experience. We knew we were going to have to adjust it. So how did we adjust it? So it was kind of three main trains of thought. Where do we need to start this process? What did we know the roadblocks were going to be? And then from a team perspective, how are we going to manage this build? Because we knew it was going to be unlike how we manage other builds within Acro Media. So where do you start? We knew for us that we had a couple of really main goals. Firstly, we needed to take a look at what we had and do a big inventory and cart sort. There were a lot of tools that they had built and then turned off, we had sitting there, things that needed to be consolidated, things that were only in English and needed to be in English and French. So we needed to do a major inventory. After that, we knew that in the world of Telus, it's all about customer types. They have three main customer types. One is a net new customer. So you're either already with Rogers or Bell, or you don't have a cell phone, and you're going to come over to Telus for the first time. Two is I'm already a customer with Telus and I'm going to return and make edits, buy a new phone, or change my plan. And three is a customer with a family account, which they call add-a-line. So it's a family plan, so multiple subscribers on one account. So we knew that in order for this to be successful, we needed to move by customer type one at a time. There was just way too many differences between the three models to make the move all at once. We'd still be in the middle of building it and trying to port. So for a long time, we had 1 foot in C++, and we were fulfilling orders and managing orders through that system, as well as 1 foot in Drupal Commerce and fulfilling and managing through that system, plus 2 dev teams to support both of these different tools, because they are quite different skill sets to build. We also knew that planning integrations for the service layer at Telus that we needed to connect to was going to be a major undertaking. And security and architecture on this level is a full-time job for one gentleman within Acro, and of course supporting back and forth with the team at Telus. So connecting to service calls is one thing, and then we're talking D7. We're talking the performance issues that we were coming up against, as well as each customer's journey is unique. Therefore, we're having very limited ability to cache. And so how do we handle those caching issues, or the lack thereof, and still have a successful customer journey that doesn't take 25 seconds to load this page? So we knew that this was going to be kind of our overarching theme in planning how to make the move. Focus on customer type, do some really heavy editing, and planning out security and integration right away. So what were going to be the biggest roadblocks? We knew that we needed to deal with these right up front. So service integrations. Telus has a mothership called BT, and this is, I've never been to where the BT gentlemen are, but I have a real picture in my mind. This is where all of the data and all of the stuff we need to access is stored at Telus. And they're quite a large department of software programmers. And we needed to complete about 10 custom service calls into their system in order to receive the data back, in order to populate the experience for a customer to configure and purchase a phone. Working with BT had proven very difficult in our relationship from 2004 on in different ways. Not always, but at many times. Sometimes it was a lack of technical skill on the end of the person responsible for the service on the Telus side, and sometimes it was an unwillingness to play nice with outside developers, to be completely transparent. So we knew that this was going to be probably our #1 roadblock. So how we actioned that was the Telus team actually assigned us a specific Telus project manager. Just her whole life was to remove BT roadblocks. I can't imagine having that job. Her name was Teresa Hefferman. She was amazing. That was her entire life, was to basically go ask for stuff that they had that they didn't want to give us. Biggest roadblock. Team size. A company like Telus comes to a company like Acro, 60 people, and they're like, hey, we want to do this, let's do it all now. We want every guy in your company, and we want them for as long as we need them, but when we don't want them anymore, here they are back, so then do whatever you need to do with them. Well, that didn't work for our other clients or our leadership team. So we knew that we had to define a team size that was realistic to get Telus moved over in a reasonable timeline without disrupting the rest of our company. And also creating some security for our leadership as well about finances and when money's coming in and how long it's going to last for, so that we can plan around that. So really what we did was we set some rules in place in our contract about notice coming in, bringing new resources on, and notice when they're going to turn resources loose. And this has really become a floating contract over the years as to how we deal with each other relationship-wise when we need to fluctuate on the team. Performance and security. So this is a massive talk on its own. Clearly, I'm not fit to have this discussion with you about performance and security. I'm not that person on the team. But we're dealing with a unique customer experience for every renewing customer, somebody who already has an account, which is 80% of traffic to the site. We have a typical usage of about 100 concurrent users. When we go into pre-order mode, when Telus is turning on the new iPhone, we're talking 1,200 users. We have PCI compliance because we do provide all of these hosting services. And then we're talking about the hardware that goes along with all of this. So we knew that this was going to be a major issue if we didn't start with it on day one. So really how we dealt with that, we sent our leads down to Rackspace, which is who provides our hosting for Telus. They got to spend a week working on strictly hardware and learning some nuances of PCI compliance with this customer. It's something that we've resourced full time, so one guy spends his life doing this. He's amazing, and we take it really, really seriously. And so we started on day one of the migration with performance and security, and it's followed us through the whole project. And the last roadblock we knew we were going to have was going to be internal. What's going to happen to the rest of Acro? So we still have a large customer base that still needs to be served. Just because we have a new big shiny check, we still need to serve the other clients. And then what happens if Telus leaves us? Can we still afford to go on, or are we laying people off? We didn't want that to be the result. So our plan of action really was, we had a very strict gate around the Telus boys. We cannot go and steal from other teams. The other teams share resources, and in the Telus world, you get what you get. So in the way of how we managed a project like this, we knew we were going to have to sprint in some fashion. So we sprinted, but we didn't really follow the agile rules per se. So we assembled a team. We have 10 programmers. I'm the account manager, and then we have a project manager as well. Those resources don't change. Consistency in those resources was paramount to the success of the build. We've all had projects that we've worked on where we started out with one lead programmer. 3 months before launch, he's moved on to a new job, and now some other programmer's got to pick up his code. That's not going to work when you're trying to accomplish a migration of this scale. So consistent resources on a 1-year term, so the guys were together and working together for the year. Road mapping out the priorities was really important as well. When a customer says, I want 10 resources for a year plus 2 managers, I would suspect that you can imagine being able to accomplish any development task in a year's time or 18 months' time with a team that big. That's about 1,800 hours per month we were capable of producing. And if you think about that over a year, you think, yeah, we can migrate that. But we've proven that wrong many times at Acro. So really what we did was we treated this like no other project in the way of managing, that the boys were still responsible for quoting out all of the tasks, even though the tasks were internal to their own team. Estimating out this effort down even to the 15-minute increment at times sounds painful, but it really allowed us to be able to tell the client with accuracy, yes or no, we can or can't deliver this section of work in this time frame. So I went back through our time logging and discovered that it's actually about $5,000 a month that we still spend on quoting out what is going to happen over the next couple of months of each leg of this project as it still evolves. So investing in quoting, even if it's just internally, is absolutely paramount to the success of the project for us. And then just a little bit about how we manage in the Agile world. We do like a lot of the rules. We're flexible. We like to do MVP style builds when we need to. We iterate, we sprint. We're super rigid around our testing practices and go live practices. We don't bend when they want to get something else in at the last minute or change a go live date or remove a code freeze. That's non-negotiable for us. And we do Scrum every morning just so that we know what's going on with one another. And we do retrospectives so that we can find out how to improve. What do we ignore? All the formal titles in the world of Agile development really didn't mean anything to us. So we scrapped them. We all had our role and we knew what it was, and so we weren't so caught up in who was named what. Story planning and effort points. We don't do any of that in a project of this scale. We're talking about this guy has this skill set and this many hours. Quote out your thing and let me know how much that is, and then we put it into the roadmap. For us, that has become probably the biggest learning. We tried to do planning poker and all those really fun sounding steps. They just didn't work for a project like this. We were talking straight software, and so that's where we stuck. And also, we scrapped the formal demo schedule. We do a lot of demos. Sometimes you need a few a day, and sometimes you only need one a month. So we didn't get caught up in the fact that we needed to have a meeting for the sake of a meeting. So that's a little bit about how we manage from an overarching perspective the project. So what does this site actually do? I don't know if you've ever bought a phone through the Telus site. It feels actually pretty simple, I hope, to make the purchase. But behind the scenes, it does a lot. So in the simplest of terms, you're configuring and then you're buying. So it's like a wizard walking you through the steps. And when you're walking through the steps, it's asking you to select your phone number, it's asking you to select your device, the size of the device, the color of the device, SIM card, all of these little steps. Why that's happening is because we're actually making 10 service calls back to that Telus mothership, and we're trying to disguise some of the load time without having to show you a throbber on the page. So we want you to feel like you're making choices, but really we're buying ourselves performance time. Because as I said, there's very limited caching available because each customer is on its own journey. So what's happening as me as a returning customer buying from the site? Here are the service calls. I come to the website, it's got to find my profile. Who am I? What's the summary of my account? And do I owe money on my current device or do I own it outright? And it's got to check and see if I'm in good credit standing and what are my available offers? Are there any sales? What does the plans look like at the time? Because Telus changes their pricing all of the time. Do I share data with a person also on my subscription? Could I share data? And are there any add-ons they want to slap onto me at the end? So all of these things need to happen when I'm simply just trying to tell you, yeah, that's still my phone number. It seems like a silly thing to do to confirm. They know my phone number, but we're doing it so we have time to make some of these calls and make you feel like you're just picking a color. So what else is happening behind the scenes of this build that's taking us all this time to move over is that basically there are two major factors in deciding what's going to be served up to you content-wise. One is your location, and two is what's going on in your current contract. So as you can imagine, if I'm a week away from my contract expiring in the world of my device, the offers actually get, let's say, juicier for me, as an example. So my plan it'll show that my plan is almost done. So what are they going to give me to incentivize me to stay? So the system has built into the Drupal Commerce section something called Minimum Service Commit, or we call it MSC. We love acronyms at Telus. So the MSC, just think of it like a giant table. Sorry, anybody who actually ever worked on MSC, I'm probably way off right now. Think of it as a giant table, and really it goes down and checks the rule, and it says, you pick the iPhone 6S, that device is brand new and shiny and expensive, therefore you must commit a minimum of $60 a month in data, as an example. If I wanted to try to get the iPhone 4, the price of that $60 in data would be different. So there's a big brain going on in the Drupal Commerce world here that's kind of controlling all of the variables that I get presented. And those two things are also determined by location and where I am in my current contract. So it's detecting my location, it's hooking in and doing a fraud check, it's using a third-party service for a credit check as well. It has a master bypass switch that basically, when the Telus services from that circle slide with all the things it needs to call, those services, one or all of them, they go down all the time. This morning I wanted to top up my data, service was down. So what happens when I'm a new customer and I'm coming to the site trying to buy my phone for the first time, we don't want to turn anybody away. So what we do is we have a master switch that we flip and we fake the experience and we let you through and make the purchase. So that's called the bypass flow. So it's like a whole other customer type that we allow through. The bypass flow then gets turned off, normal transactions happen, and somebody goes in the back end and manually fulfills those orders and might have to call you and say, oh, actually, the 64 gig wasn't available, but here's the 32 or something as an example. They also do all of the order management and fulfillment through Drupal Commerce, which is super, super customized in this instance. Drupal Commerce is not known for its strength in order fulfillment and order management in D7. It's something that our commerce team is talking a lot about in the D8 world as we port over to 2.x right now. So the custom version that Telus runs is very, very unique for what they do in their business. The site also integrates with Coors, SAP, Locker, Global Payments, New Relic. It uses Google Maps to populate your address, all this kind of good stuff. And then after I've made my order, I want to come back instantly. I want to check where it is, and they want to stop all those phone calls from coming in. So we built an order status tool, so I come to the site and I can hook into Canada Post and Purelator and find out the delivery status where my phone is. And all of this is happening in 2 languages, English and French, and as those 2 languages change based on your province, it's flipping the content and often the pricing and conditions for each because they don't remain consistent across provinces. So this is all again happening for 8.6 million subscribers, 28,000 employees, every retiree, and all of these other specialty little venues that they have going on in the Telus world for friends and family and stuff. It's a pretty substantial build at this point. They're back up to almost 500,000 lines of code in this new version of the site. I kind of wanted to do just a quick pause and talk to you guys specifically about what a pre-order means in Drupal Commerce. I'm only going to touch on this really lightly, but this is important simply because this is the reason why Telus chooses Acro Media. So, like I said, a pre-order is when they've announced a new iPhone and now there's that 1 to 2 week window where it's not for sale yet to the general public. At midnight, the product comes on sale on our website and people are hammering the server for a couple hours before. So what we're doing at Acro that night is we're all sitting in a boardroom at midnight and we're watching the screen on New Relic on the screen in the room, and we're just seeing like the bottlenecks start to build. And we've got our server team guys there and the executives are on the phone. They call it a war room, and it's all very fun and stressful, and we do it once a year, sometimes twice, depending on what Samsung has come out with. So as this is going on, the boys are actually doing about 3 months work leading up to this, because Apple doesn't give Telus any insider information either. We don't know how many devices we're getting. We don't know what the features are going to be. We don't know if we need to build something in Drupal Commerce to account for these different features. We don't know where the orders are going to ship from. And we don't even know if it's going to be popular. That's another condition that's been interesting over the years. Was it the 5C? What was the plastic one with all the colors? We went through all this for like 3 months, and I don't know, sold like 10 phones. So we don't know anything different than the consumer, so we're flying blind. They give us the information the morning of. Our boys all go in, they enter all the information, they put the SKUs in, put in the content, they put the legal in, they put the French in. You get the picture. So what I think is actually most interesting that the boys have built in Drupal Commerce in the way of an iPhone pre-order to handle it, aside from the server architecture, which blows my mind year over year, that as the pre-orders get bigger and bigger, that they can keep up with it. They built out this system called deferrals. So on the night of pre-order, in the world of telecom, the most important customer is a new customer. Because you've likely tried to go to Rogers and buy the phone, and you were either frustrated, their site was down, or you got denied. And so you're like, I'll go over to Telus, I don't care, I'll pay the difference. I just want this new device. Like, people get obsessed, it's crazy. Has anybody here ever bought a phone in pre-order? Not that you're willing to admit. You have. Was it on Telus?
No.
Was the site up when you went?
Yes.
You did a Nexus pre-order?
That's me.
You did a Nexus pre-order on Telus, or?
No, I did it through the Google site.
You did it through the Google site, and was their site up?
Yeah. I did Rogers for iPhone.
And you got through?
No, I didn't. I actually just called the.
Call.
I haven't called.
Okay. I'm always like, who does this pre-order thing? Like, I'm in bed, I don't really care. My phone works perfectly fine. I'm not in bed, I'm in the boardroom, like sweating. Okay, so what's happening with this pre-order scenario is that the boys have built is if you went to Rogers and it wasn't working and you got ultimately frustrated and you were like, I don't care about Rogers, I'll move to Telus in this moment because all I care about is getting this device. That's like the golden goose of a customer that night. They track, like each company tracks what the other guy's doing. They're watching each other's Twitter, they're monitoring sentiment to see how many customers do we steal from one another in this kind of 3-hour window once a year. So we built this system called deferrals. So you've come over from Rogers, we know you're a new customer because you haven't indicated that you have a new phone number or an existing phone number plan, any of this stuff. We don't know how many devices we have, so we don't know how long it's going to take to get you in. Even when we're selling them, we don't know. But you're the most important guy to us that night, so we tell you it's a 1 to 2 week delivery window. And so you go through the flow, you get your phone, you check out, you've been told 1 to 2 week delivery. I want to buy a phone, same night, same time. I'm one of the guys jamming up the server like crazy. I'm a returning customer. They can tell that I'm a returning customer. They're like, oh, she's already in-house. We don't have to offer her the same quick delivery window. What we're going to do instead is offer her a deferral. So the boys have built a system to recognize those conditions. And it'll say, the deferral is editable year over year, but for the last couple of years, what it's been is we've offered you free Apple Care to pick a 3 to 5 week delivery window. You might still get your device in a week. We might get 10,000. We have no idea at this time, but we're gonna, based on how many we're selling in the first 5 minutes, our deferral might change. So the deferral kind of has a velocity threshold as to how much or how little we need to offer and give away that night in order to get new customers and keep returning customers happy. So that took the boys first time around about 3 months to build. It worked. It's like a crazy fun and crazy stressful night. And here's the best thing that happens for us on pre-order. Last year and the year before, Rogers went down and Bell went down and Apple.com went down and Telus Mobility stayed up through entire pre-order and our server survived. So that's like the biggest deal that you hear. You know, the senior vice president of the department from Telus will send out an email. Did you hear that we stayed up last night? We're like, yeah, we know, dude. You were in bed. We were in the boardroom. We know. So what's Drupal commerce processed in the way of orders for Telus Mobility so far? So this is my stat from 2016, and I'm talking phones and plans. I'm not talking Beats by Dr. Dre and Kate Spade phone cases. This is the big ticket item, phones and plans. And this is with 80% of traffic going through the site for the whole year, and the last 20% of the traffic wasn't migrated over till June. So 20% is at a half-year stat and 80% for the whole year. So we're at about 50,000 orders in the first year going through Drupal Commerce. And turning that into dollars with the same breakdown, we're at about $9.2 million going through Drupal Commerce. So you can imagine the price tag that we charged Telus to resource a team of 10 programmers, 2 managers, etc., and all the pain and anguish that you go through when you're building a project like this. It wasn't cheap. Can you still lose money when you're building a project of this scale? You get that one big, huge, shiny paycheck. Is it profitable? Absolutely, you can lose money. We're talking about delivering a virtual service. We were chatting about it last night. It's mind-blowing to figure out how to price something that you can't see and you can't even really always experience. So like you're selling faith. It's a very confusing process. So how do you price it? How do you know if it was profitable? And now that it's live, how do you continue to grow this account, make money? What are kind of the big takeaways that we know about keeping them happy and keeping the site up and running? So from super high level, how do we price this? As a company, we sell hours. We're a service company, but in this instance, we did not sell hours, we sold people. I think this is absolutely key as Telus now has a firm fixed monthly cost on an annual term. Their expectation of workflow was very difficult to set at the beginning because we didn't know what we were going to be able to produce under these conditions either. We didn't realize the balance of taking a senior programmer but having to move him into a senior team lead. So we account for his efficiency in developing code, but really what his role became was delegating out that code to his own teammates and managing the technical expectations of the client. And it's a very important role, but you don't know until you figure it out throughout the process that you need that guy on the team. So when you find out you need that guy on the team, all of a sudden you've lost 40% or 50% of development time from him because he has other duties. So selling those guys on a firm fixed cost month over month and setting the expectation of what the guys are actually doing and capable of doing was very, very important. Again, we don't make any concessions on quoting still. So the site started in 2014 to move over. We've been live since 2015. We're into 2017. The boys are still quoting out in 15-minute increments for us. We're very familiar with code at this point, but we can't understand if we're making money at the same rate as the rest of the company just because we have a bigger price tag on this one project unless we quote and then basically go through the data and find out, was our quote accurate? And then also we need to be able to communicate to the client what you're going to get delivered in a 1 month or 2 month long window. This is maybe just a little piece of advice about including the cost of your project manager and account manager into the hourly rates of the rest of the guys in the pod. There's nothing else that the project manager in particular will be doing within your company whatsoever. He is essentially a full software resource for billing. So depending on what your company structure is for how you bill non-technical resources, he's just a part of the team and you don't charge for him, and it's become really important in being able for our data to be consistent for quoting, to know that we need to account for his time. Telus Digital is in Toronto. We are in Kelowna. So including travel costs, the face-to-face stuff is really important, and you can lose a lot of money as a company paying to send 3-4 guys to Toronto every couple of weeks for meetings and architectural planning sessions, as well as sending management out there to negotiate new deals, all that sort of stuff. After hours launches. Telus is not going to launch a new big section of code at 9 o'clock in the morning when people are hitting the site. And when you have 10 guys that need to come in for 3 hours every other week, that money really adds up and cuts into your bottom line. So track your OT and don't be afraid to charge a client for it. And then a lot of transparency around our contracts. We don't try to hide any detail in the contract, and we make sure that our invoices match what's in our contract exactly. We always tell them, yeah, we never compete on price. We tell all of our clients this really, that we don't really compete on price, we compete on quality. And I think that people get afraid to charge what they actually need to make money out of the deal. And Telus is a great example on a large scale of just saying, hey, here are the actual hard costs, and you're trying to earn and we're trying to earn, and this is what the number kind of looks like. So this is how our pricing formula works. These are the components that make it up. So if you can think about your own pricing model and how some of these items might fit into it. How do we know if we made money? We just go back to the data. As I said, the boys log time in a painful fashion. The log time then gets tracked by cost variance. Did they quote 1 hour, but did it take them 2? So is it half read? And then we look at that half read task and go, what was the problem? Did we spend twice as much time communicating with the guy on the other end of the phone who wrote the service and his service didn't work? Or was the guy just bad at the task? Vacation time. When a dude leaves the pod for 3 weeks to go on a spiritual find yourself journey, I got 3 guys doing that right now. I'm still trying to deliver in that window. What do we do? That can be a very delicate balance of making sure that your people are still people and making sure that your work is still getting out the door. And then also, are you going to lose money from those human instances? Paying overtime to get things out the door and after hours launches can suck a massive portion of your budget. So we have specific rules around tracking and submitting and performing overtime duties. Individual efficiencies. Understanding this per project or per company isn't enough. You need to understand it per guy. Every guy, plug your ears. Every guy has a different skill set. Some guys are really, really fast, and some guys are really, really slow at the exact same task, and some guys are completely unfit to complete the task. Understanding that about your team, instead of just beating your head against the wall and letting the guys do what they're good at and making money in those areas, has proven really important. I've done it both ways as a project manager until I learned that you as a project manager or a lead can't change something in a developer that you can't understand yourself. So let them do what they're good at and what they make money at. Also, paid hours versus non-paid hours, and being transparent about this with the client. So our boys are required to log 7 hours of time a day, and even though Telus is paying for those full 7 hours every day for the entire month, for the entire year, we tell them transparently they're actually only, based on all of our stats, capable of completing 5.5 hours of work that goes into your project. And when you add that up times 10 guys over a year, that's a lot of time that they're paying for, that they're actually paying Acro to run the business. Because the boys have to go to internal meetings, and they have coaching, and they have reviews, and we have 2 days a year where we're paid as a company, but we do off-site things. And so we account for all of that, and we're transparent about it, because when you add up an hour and a half per guy per day times 10 guys for the year, you've lost your margin unless you account for it up front. And post-mortem on your estimate versus the actuals. If you're not within 5%, look at the red stuff and figure out who did what and who can do what better. And then lastly, is your contract protecting you, or is it only serving the client because you want to get it in the door? If they leave, does your company go down to half the size? That was really important to our leadership, not to spend money outside of, or because we had Telus, not to spend money differently, and not to treat, we treat them like a very isolated pod within our business. We actually our company is called Acro, and Acro spelled backwards is Orca. So we call the Telus guys the Orca pod because they're their own little satellite unit, and we have to be very cognizant of how they influence and affect the business on the whole, and then make pretty strategic choices around that, and not get happy ears when we see a big check coming in, because at the end of the day, in the Orca pod, somebody's going to have to go if Telus cuts their price down, or their spend down to half, and we want to know what that looks like in reality for the rest of the company. So lastly, how do you keep an account like this alive? I think something that you don't think about until it's a problem that should be thought about all the time. Security should be #1 priority on an account like this. As I mentioned, Acro Media is responsible for all of the PCI compliance and hosting for Telus Mobility. That's insane if you think about it. As if they don't have the capability to do that in-house with the size of the organization and the skill that they have in-house in their dev department. I mean, they have a massive DevOps team. It's because they need somebody to be accountable for it as a corporation. If they have a data breach, they have to be able to say, oh, that was a vendor, we fired them, your data is safe with us. That was them in this silo, and your data is safe with us. You don't think about security every day. It's something that you kind of take for granted. And so if there's ever any issue with our compliance level, we won't be partners with Telus anymore. So while it can be a boring topic for some, it's probably the #1 most important thing that we can do day over day. And #2, you kill an iPhone pre-order, or whatever it is in your client's business that makes them the best at what they do. And for them, that is year over year being able to brag about pre-order. So focus on it as much as they focus on it as an organization. I would suggest we've learned writing tests to fill the gaps. You forget about some of the old code and don't. And then refactor. We got to get to market fast because there's a sale that Rogers is doing and we need to be able to competitively respond to it. We didn't do it the right way. Don't be afraid to go back and ask for money to do it again. And then have a guy who's isolated that just gets stuff done and out the door to market, so you don't have to interrupt your other workflow. So we call that guy the BAU guy. He's the business as usual guy, and he does all of the small ad hoc tasks and doesn't interrupt our main effort. And then when he has nothing to do, he refactors again, because there's always something that could be faster through refactoring. And then go back and look at your servers often, not just once a year. You can always make them juicier. Every year, the people that want to buy on iPhone pre-order, or the Telus's ability to come to us and say, hey, we never mentioned this before, but we have this whole other section of business that we're working on right now that we've always had, and it doesn't go through the commerce site, but we're going to put it through the commerce site starting in March. That takes a lot longer than until March for us to change the servers and infrastructure to support that, which is what we're in the process of right now, is supporting $200 million a year as opposed to $10 million a year going through this site. How do you pivot that quickly with your architecture? You need to have been looking at it for a lot longer than 2 months before that request. When you do something well in Drupal Commerce, other departments start to take notice of it, and everybody wants to use the tool, and we can limit ourselves if we're not careful in that regard. And then lastly, they have a whole team that supports collecting data and then extracting the data and analyzing it in depth in a mind-numbing fashion. Get the highlights and use them. Talk to the UX guys, talk to your server guys about speed and performance and see what you can do better. And if you run out of things to try to sell them, you can always try to figure out how to port all of this to D8, which is probably the next thing on the horizon. So if you guys have questions, I'll try to help you. If they're technical in nature, I put this dude's handle in here, and he can help you out in Slack channel. He's over at our table as well today. Or one of these guys down here. Everybody's touched Telus here. Yeah. So that's it. Do you guys have any questions, or am I free to go? Okay, cool. Thanks, guys.